Welcome or welcome back to Rise and Align, where we talk about all things high vibrational. We are your hosts. My name is Demi.
And I am Haley. Today we are talking about relationships and the importance of having meaningful relationships, and that does extend beyond romantic relationships. I do think that it is important to surround yourself with people who are supportive and loving and make you feel safe and nourished, but also expand you and help you grow and, even kind of call you out. I think that there are a variety of relationships that you could have or should have in your life in order to kind of fulfill all of your needs. And I feel like it doesn't really work if you rely on one person for everything. Obviously, that is kind of more of a codependent route, but also I think that life can be so much more fulfilling and meaningful if you have a community of really amazing people around you. So just kind of wanted to talk about that today. I know that's something that I am working on myself and something that is super important to me, is super valuable, and honestly, I think one of the most important parts about life.
I agree 100%. I think it's definitely one of the keys to success as well. When you were talking, it kind of sparked for me a memory. While I was doing the consulting program, there was a chapter where we were meant to make a mastermind, and that was like really a challenge for me. I thought, I have a couple best friends, but like I don't know if they'd be interested in what I'm trying to accomplish, or if they'd be good sources. And it really made me start thinking about like how different people have different strengths and how important it is to have people like on your side who genuinely support you. And I was asked in the past too, like, or I think I've even seen like memes, right, that say, when you get good news or like when you have a win, who's the first person you want to call and why? And I think for a long time in my life, I didn't have a lot of people that I could tell good news to who were genuinely happy for me, who were genuinely supportive and excited and like made me feel happy to share that with them. And that can really be life-changing. To have even just one person who genuinely supports you like that is so valuable.
Yeah, that's so true. I feel like for most of my life, I didn't share any news about my successes or like the big exciting things, or even, when I was at my worst, I didn't feel like I had anyone that I could share that with, or felt safe enough to share that with, or felt, I've always been so protective of my energy, and it's hard to share something that is very vulnerable, whether it's exciting or more bad news, and have a negative response to that, or not have it be what you want it to be from someone. And you can choose a family. You can choose who you want to be in your own family or community, but you do have blood relatives that you don't get to choose. And, you obviously want to involve them in your life as much as possible. But again, you don't get to choose those people. And I think it's so valuable when, you get old enough where you realize you can choose to have people in your life that are supportive and loving and cheer you on and are there for you at your worst. And sometimes that isn't your blood relatives, and that's okay. That is something that I've kind of experienced with myself, and I've kind of come to terms with it. I share what I feel comfortable with certain people, but the people that you are related to aren't always the people that you're going to resonate with the most.
I think it's important to realize too that like if you have people in your life like that, whether it's your family or your friends from your childhood, or whoever might be around you, that it's not necessarily because they don't want you to succeed, but it's because they don't believe that they can succeed, so they can't believe that you can either. And that just comes from subconscious programming, what they've learned to believe throughout their lives, not a bad place necessarily, which I think is what has allowed me to also like come to terms with that and consider the source when I am sharing something, or when I am asking for an opinion, or anything like that. Consider who it's coming from. I think that's so important. And I think the concept of they say surround yourself with people who you want to be like, or people who have accomplished what you want to accomplish. And when I was doing consulting, I found that really intimidating because they had us write down like monetary goals and, things like that. And so I was thinking like, well, where am I going to find like multiple multimillionaires to hang out with? Like that made it feel like, so are my friends not good enough? So
Mm-hmm.
am I not good enough?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's coming from our success episode too, what success truly means. The people who you want to be surrounded with don't necessarily need to be like financially quote unquote successful,
Mm-hmm.
like in American standards,
Mm-hmm.
but they need to be loving and supportive and expanding. Like those qualities are really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Open-minded people that I can genuinely share things with, who I know want what's best for me, and I know like don't have a biased opinion, based on what they're lacking.
Mm-hmm. I think that part of what you said can be really valuable from like people that you want to surround yourself in, like a mentor aspect. You had shared that podcast episode with Jay Shetty and the CEO of Airbnb. I think it's Brian Chesky. He had talked about types of relationships that he's developed, and he's had great mentors and then personal relationships, and having mentors that you can look up to that help you expand and grow and have the resources that you desire to have to create your dreams, to create whatever success means to you or whatever your purpose is. I think having those people that have what you want are great mentors and people that you can have around you to help you get there. I think from a personal aspect, even those that aren't maybe always the most positive influence also have a purpose too. I think a lot of personal relationships are meant to expand us, and sometimes that means going through hardships or going through contrast with these people, and maybe they aren't meaningful relationships with people, they long term, but I think they do teach you something regardless. So, I mean, I think that's important to note too, like everyone you come in to contact with and everyone that you do have a relationship with may not be meaningful, but it does have a purpose and it does expand you. I also feel like, I grew up around people who I have learned immensely from, but I learned what I didn't want to do, the path that I didn't want to take, and what I learned through them by watching them go through certain life events, and just seeing how that played out for them honestly taught me a lot, and I didn't need to make those mistakes that they made because I saw them do it.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can honestly learn something from everyone and anyone, which is, what makes our differences so profound. And I also think that as you get to know yourself and you get to learn like who you authentically are, you attract more people like you. I feel like the older I get, the more I appreciate the people around me, and the more that I feel like they relate to me in so many ways. And I just feel really so lucky for that.
And the more that you are able to discern who you let in your life, I think when you're younger, you kind of don't filter who's coming in and out. You kind of don't realize the importance of having meaningful people around you. And as you get older, you develop more of a filter. You're able to pick and choose who you want in your life more, and you learn how to set boundaries with people. And I think that that does kind of come with age a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely think it does. I really do. I think I meet so many people, especially younger people, but sometimes all ages, who will hold on to friends simply because, well, we've been friends for so long. Like maybe they shared a traumatic experience together. Maybe they were just friends since childhood. Whatever it might be, they'll be so adamant about like, well, this is my best friend. Well, your best friend isn't happy for you. Your best friend isn't kind to you. Your best friend isn't consistent with you. Are they really your best friend? Are they really what's best for you? They don't even want what's best for you. Like, I think as you learn to love yourself more and evolve as a person, you start to realize, like, I can unconditionally love that person from afar, but I don't need to spend my time and energy with that person because maybe they're not what's best for me anymore.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I'm going to tell them I hate them or,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
ignore them forever or anything like that, but just recognizing that they're no longer aligned with who I am
Mm-hmm.
and where I'm going and what I want.
Mm-hmm. That's so perfect. I feel like I'm going through that exact scenario right now, and I've had that realization with, in general, but with particular people in my life where I do unconditionally love them. I'll love them forever, but we are on different life paths, and I've learned so much about myself, and I have high standards for myself and who I want in my life and who I want to spend my time on, because time is precious.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting the effort into someone who isn't supportive or expansive. I found that it can be a little difficult when it is someone that you've known forever, because you kind of feel like you owe it to them to like continue being friends with them, and you have been through so much together. But I I don't think that everyone's meant to be in your life forever, and they've kind of served their purpose. And when you know, and it doesn't have to be a goodbye forever. It can be see you later type of thing. But when it doesn't align anymore. And I think the importance is like recognizing that and allowing the surrender to that. We talk about that a lot, like allowing for the release of things that are no longer serving you, and that can be with relationships too, friendships.
I think it's normal and healthy to have people flow in and out of your life. And that doesn't mean, like I said, doesn't mean you're enemies. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong or that you're losing them or that they're losing you. It's just that we're flowing in different directions, Your river's going over there. It doesn't mean that I don't love your river. It's
still beautiful.
Yeah, in its own way. We're just different. And I think it's funny, I've actually gotten into debates with people over this topic because they're like, you're like cold-hearted. And I'm like, no, it's not
The
like
opposite.
that at all. And they're like, well, don't people ever like get mad at you and like come at you for that and like, try to yell at you for just ditching them? And I'm like, no, because I think it's natural that as you expand, and maybe resonate at a higher frequency, those people are just no longer a vibrational match to you. So it's not like you even have to say, hey, I'm not going to be your friend anymore.
It just kind of
you just don't
happens.
focus there. It's just natural.
Yeah. And then you make space for an even more fulfilling relationship.
Yeah. And I find that naturally occurs too. Like for me, I think not only have I watched like some friendships come and go, but I've also witnessed the relationships that I do have grow stronger, and the people who are surrounding me consistently for long periods of time expanding with me, and I also noticed that there were times in my life where I had the tendency to focus on what I didn't like about somebody. Like, we disagree on this topic and that really rubs me the wrong way. And as I've expanded as a person, I now can enjoy the presence of people who I know that we might disagree on certain things and that we're not the same because everyone's different, but I can appreciate what we do have in common, and I can appreciate what I love about them and what's beautiful about them and all the good things about them. And that's what I like to think about and talk about and bring out in people when I do spend time with them. Even if we are different, you can still love people unconditionally if you're not the same. Most of us aren't.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like that is something that I have struggled with in the past too, because I became so protective of my energy. And so if I saw one thing that was like a red flag, it was like, I'm not gonna be friends with them. I'm not gonna talk to them. I'm not even gonna try. No.
Yes.
But it's like, I think humans in general are innately good, and you can find that good in almost anyone, and you don't have to have the same hobbies, and you don't have to think the same, and maybe you don't have to be best friends with this person, but I think that they do have everyone has a unique perspective on life, and you can definitely see that in everyone. And the more welcoming and opening you are and more like vulnerable you are is what you'll receive from other people. So me being very like closed off to people because I'm like protecting myself, it really makes it hard to call in people that are willing to build a meaningful relationship with you because you're not allowing yourself to do that with them.
Yeah, I think that's so important to realize, is that vulnerability is key to any good relationship, whether that's romantic or platonic.
Mm-hmm.
You're so right. Like, if you can't be vulnerable with someone, then you can't expect another person to be vulnerable with you. And if you can't be authentically yourself, then you can't attract people who are authentically aligned with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that too. I've had periods of my life where I've had a lot of friends or a large friend group, and I've never felt more lonely in my life because I didn't feel comfortable being authentically me. I was closed off and unopen, so I wasn't receiving that from them either. And it's so isolating and lonely, and you can be surrounded by all of these people but still feel alone.
Mm-hmm. I've experienced that same thing, and I want to say, like, if you're listening and you're like, yeah, I've experienced that, like, a lack of connection with people, even if you're around people all the time, I encourage you to open up and be vulnerable and share details of your life and your feelings with people, because when you do that, you will develop deeper connections. And here we go again. Like Russ says, if you do everything with your boundaries down, like, you really have nothing to fear. Like, when you expose your own vulnerabilities, even if someone says, like, I don't relate and I don't get it, well, then you're not meant to be with that person, like, it's not ever going to take anything away from you, but there is a great chance that it can strengthen your relationship or even build a deeper connection with someone. Also, I was thinking, to me, it's so important when I am dating someone, one, to be vulnerable with them, but two, to have them come around people who I trust and who I know genuinely want what's best for me, because I know that sometimes those people know me better than I know myself. And so their opinion about somebody that I think I might want to date is really so important, because they'll tell you the truth.
Yeah. And I think that's part of having the right people around. Like, they're not afraid to say to you, like, I don't think that's right for you, or like, maybe that's not the right. They can kind of see things that you can't. And that's another, like, concept that they had on that podcast, On Purpose podcast, with Jay Shetty, and then the Airbnb CEO. So he had founded Airbnb with 2 other people, and he was like, I never saw myself as a CEO of a big tech company or a pizza joint, for that matter, but these people saw something in me that I didn't see myself. And if they hadn't pushed me and saw that in me, he would have never had the successes that he's had today, or that they've accumulated together. And again, that highlights the importance of community. It highlights the importance of having people around you that you trust, that push you, that expand you. And he also talks a lot about having people that you can share your experiences with, share life with, share successes with, because that in itself is isolating if you don't. If you can be the richest person on earth, but if you don't have anyone to share that with, what's the point? Like, the money and the career and everything, it doesn't matter if you don't have people that you can share that with or to enjoy that with.
I loved that he shared that, because that's coming from someone who, I don't know, he's at least a multimillionaire. I think he did talk about how much they've made, but I mean, like, someone who is quote unquote everyone's, like, vision of success, and one of the most successful people arguably in the world. And he said himself, when I had no one around, it was pointless. And I've also heard, like, obviously Russ talked about that a lot recently on his album Santiago, and I've heard lots of other highly successful people say that money isn't what makes you happy. Like, it's love, it's connection, it's somebody that you can share that with.
Yeah, I think he said, when I get to the top of the mountain, I don't want to be there alone. You want someone to share the view with. Otherwise it's
meaningless. When you have people that you can share that with, it becomes meaningful.
So
on purpose.
Really
It's a beautiful concept.
It really highlights the importance of, like, making memories and having experiences with those around you. And you don't have to be the richest person on earth to experience life and make memories and do fun things and have meaningful conversations and connect. And you can do all of that without a penny.
Mm-hmm. Also, there have been studies done on manifestation through Harvard and Yale and many of the other prestigious colleges. And they say that more than one person is much more powerful at manifesting a concept than one person, which I mean, we've always, been taught even in elementary school, like two brains are more powerful than one, but it's so true. And I think a lot of people struggle to trust, and then that's kind of why they don't allow themselves to be vulnerable. But when you fear trusting someone, you don't open yourself up and you attract people who are untrustworthy. But if you trust, you often attract those who are trustworthy into your life and into your circle. And I think that Airbnb CEO is such a great representation of that, because he had his two closest friends, developing this company with him. And everyone has different strengths. So, you can't necessarily do everything that you need to do to get where you want to be by yourself. But if you surround yourself with people who know how to do the other things that you need, who have the tools or the education that you need to help you get somewhere, you can get there a lot faster.
They talk about that in Think and Grow Rich too. Surround yourself with people who do have the tools and things that you don't have, and you can do anything.
Yeah. So I think it's so worth, being open to new friendships. And it makes me think about people who have drug addictions or alcohol addictions or, whatever addiction you might have. It's often highly influenced by those around you. So I know a lot of people who have gone to treatment, and if they get out and they go hang out with those same friends, they'll land themselves right back in the same place. But if they get out and they change their life and they change who they surround themselves with, then their whole life will change permanently. It is so important. They say that we do become most like the 5 people that we spend the most time around, and energy is proven to be contagious. So, I think it's just so important to surround yourself with those who you want to be more like.
Yeah, that's even proven in sports, even in kids sports. If you are playing with or against people who are at the same level as you or not as good as you, you're not going to improve. But if that kid or that person is playing against a team who is said to be way better than them, they'll step it up. They'll just naturally step it up and play a lot better and kind of match the other team. You can see that a lot in sports and stuff. And I had a brother who played hockey, and that was very evident,
I think that it is evident on a very logical level as well, because you recognize, it makes me think of soccer, watching soccer. If a team comes from, say, Brazil to play here, and they have different talents, and they have, they kick the ball differently, and they do different little tricks and stuff, the opposing team will start to learn how to block that and learn how to work around that, and then they become more skillful and better at it as well, And
they become more determined, and, it becomes exciting and challenging. It challenges you. You're naturally going to try to overcome it, and it can be applied in many different areas of your life too.
I think in terms of friends too, a lot of people will be intimidated to be friends with somebody who's quote unquote better than them, or where they want to be. But if you learn to change your perspective around that and to be inspired by other people's wins and to celebrate other people's wins and to get excited about it, it makes you want to do it too. And I think that humans are innately competitive, and so when they see those around them doing better and accomplishing more, then they want to do it too, and so it's so good to do that, to have those people around you.
It's true. And I had a friend recently who she got a job that I've always wanted, and for one moment I was like, oh, but then it kind of set in, and it was like, wow, that's so amazing. I'm so happy for you. And when you realize that people around you are getting what you want, it's so close to you, and you're in the energetic frequency of that. Yep. So it's only natural that it will come to you as well. And it did. But if you get stuck in that jealousy mindset or frustration or comparison. One, it can be really hard to maintain relationships with people, authentic relationships with people, but also it is never going to bring you what you want because you are just matching yourself with a lower vibration.
Yep.
So you're going to call in a lesser experience than what you actually want. So I think it is really important to especially be supportive of your friends and your family, and having that exchange with them, and having it be a positive exchange, and having it be genuine. You know, you can't fool the universe. You can't fool your friends.
Yeah,
you can't.
definitely.
It has to be genuine, but just kind of rephrasing your perspective on things too can be helpful in manifestation and in friendships and in life in general.
I think when you're in that like kind of jealousy, I wish it was me, I wish I could have that, you're focused on lack. And I will always tell my clients that when you feel badly, it's because you're not aligned with source. So ask yourself, what would source think about this? And then when you recognize, like, if my friends and family are succeeding, they're an energetic extension of me. I'm excited about that. I'm happy. That means it's coming to me. I'm already attracting it into my reality. It's proof. You know, when you change your perspective to that, that's alignment with abundance, and it will come to you. It has to. It's law, you know. But when you recognize the lack, you're staying in that lack vibration, and then that's what you're going to attract, you know. Absolutely. As long as you stay in that mindset of poor me, it's never me, well, then it never will be. But when you realize, like, there's proof all around me, then it's, well, everything's coming to me.
Right. And I think it's so important to realize that you are not competing with your friends and family. It's not a competition.
You're not competing with anyone, because there's infinite abundance here for you, for you and for me and for all of us. There's infinite abundance here. Infinite.
Yeah. But I think especially with your closest like relationships, it can help you develop a more meaningful relationship when you realize that you're not in competition with them.
Yeah.
You're working together. And going back to the idea of intention setting and manifestation as well, so having people that you feel comfortable setting your intentions with and having them kind of support your intentions and grow them. That's even shown in like global meditations. People sit down, they're not even in the same space necessarily, but they will focus on an intention together. And there are studies, it does work. And having more than one person putting energy towards, you know, a specific dream or an intention, you can make it happen. And how fun is that to be able to do that with people that you love?
Visualizing the same thing with someone else or with multiple other people will make it that much more likely to manifest in the physical reality. Also, it makes me think of, I think it was Yale did a study that when a man and a woman manifest something together, they're much more powerful than even if it were two women or two men, because we have different strengths, which I love, you know. And I think that romantic relationships are extremely important too. Like there have been tons of studies done on if you are in a happy, healthy relationship, you can live like 20 years longer than if you're not, you know, to have that support in that relationship. But that said, it's so important to keep your friends and family too. It's so important. Like for me, I've been through more breakups than I would like. And without my friends, like I wouldn't have made it through. Without my friends and family there to support me and to remind me that there are other things to be grateful for. Like I heard Jay Shetty talking about it one day, and he was like, I think that platonic relationships are so undervalued and underrated. Like if you are one of those people who's like, you're so focused on attracting love, recognize the love you already have in your life. Like platonic relationships are not any less loving or any less important than romantic relationships at all. And I think it's important to value them just as much.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I mean when saying you have to have different people in your life for different purposes. Like they're going to fulfill different parts of you, and everyone's different, and you can't expect to have everything fulfilled by one person, I don't think. And you know, having different relationships are just so important. And I watched this show last winter. I think it was on Hulu. I don't remember what it's called, but it starts off, this girl she was in a relationship for a year or two or something, and she immediately stopped talking to her friends upon getting into the relationship. And then when getting out of the relationship, she was like, "Hey guys, like, what are you up to?" And they're like, "We haven't heard from you in like a year. Like, what do you, why?" And it was just really funny. It was kind of diving into like rebuilding those relationships with people, and but realizing how much they lost along the way. And like, one, you can't get that the time and the potential memories back. You know, you can't go back and change that, and you lose so much like connection when you don't nourish all of the relationships around you. Like, you have to water your garden, you water each person. You can't just put all your energy into one person, your happiness and whatever into one person, and when they're not there anymore, you don't have anyone else. You're lonely, you're isolated, and I don't know.
I think so many people do that, and you know, it comes from a place of codependency, but also like Disney and Hallmark are to thank for that, because they really taught us that one person is going to fulfill all our needs, that they are the one person you should be with all day every day, and they should have everything in common with you and always agree with you on everything. And that's just not how reality is. You know, like, I think being in a relationship has taught me that my friends fulfill different parts that like that one person can't fulfill. Like, I need more than one person in my life, and it also helps you to not be codependent and to not put all of your eggs in one basket, and not to, like, you should always be responsible for your own happiness. And you really can't do that by depending on that one person to fulfill all your needs.
And that's, you're putting too much expectation on that person to be like, make all of me happy. Figure it out.
Yeah. They're not you either.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that when you appreciate all of the people in your life, and they all like bring different aspects and strengths into your relationship and your connection with them, like, it really gives you a fulfilling life. You know, I used to be very introverted. I still am a little bit, like, I am careful about who I have around me and like how they make me feel. But to open yourself up and to build those connections, it's so rewarding. It's priceless. It really is. And I think for me, it makes me feel more confident in myself too, to like have those people who support me and who want good things for me and who will build things with me, like this podcast, for example. You know, like, I wouldn't be doing this without you. You know, it really changes your life in the best of ways.
Yeah. And it's like energizing and exciting and fulfilling, and there's just something about having valuable people around you, for sure.
Yeah. I think it's noteworthy too to recognize that so many people who are in really high positions, like Russ always talks about like how he brought his friends with him. You know, they're flying around on the jet with him, his friends and family. They're always with him. You know, and he kept them from when they were in the basement, when he really had nothing. And so many really successful, wealthy, famous people talk about that, how they kept their same friends because they were true friends. And having those true friends is just so priceless to keep around, you know?
Absolutely.
People that you can really trust. Like, if you do genuinely want to build a life like that, I think it's impossible to not attract people who are chasing after like your wealth or your fame or whatever. But when you have those true connections, you know, you feel like you can do anything.
For sure. Now, dogs. No, I'm just kidding.
Even better. Nobody unconditionally loves me quite like this fur ball.
So true. I feel like, also, just going back to Russ, we need to have a Russ segment. Like, this is
just a whole episode on Russ. Yeah.
Or just like on each episode, like, this is the Russ segment.
Right. At this point, Jay Shetty, Russ, and Dr. Joe Dispenza in every episode.
It's our besties.
It's funny too. When I was really introverted and I had just recently gone through a breakup, and I really didn't have a lot of people around me that I felt like were super supportive, and I also didn't feel like comfortable being vulnerable, I spent a lot of time with those people who I wanted to be like on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So it was Abraham Hicks and Jamie Genevieve and Russ and Joe Dispenza. Like I was spending a ton of time listening to their content.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that. You can pretend that those famous people are your friends and that you're taking their advice and that you're hanging out with them and spending time with them. And when you do that, you naturally start to attract people with those same qualities and beliefs.
Wow, that's so true. I didn't realize that, but that is something I experienced too. Like my best friends were on the internet and they technically didn't know who I was, but you feel like you're friends with them.
Yeah.
And they make you want to be better and expand and grow. And, you know, like Abraham Hicks, she's unconditionally loving. No one has unconditionally loved me like Abraham Hicks, you know, like I don't, but it's so true. You kind of develop your own community.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great place to start if you are, you know, kind of introverted and you feel like, well, how do I make new friends? It can be really intimidating to go out in public and like talk to random strangers, but the more that you get to know yourself and, you know, do things like that, spend time with the people you want to be like, even if it's just on the internet, you'll start to think like, oh, maybe I should go snowboarding because I'm really interested in that, or maybe I should go to this talk, or maybe I should go to this show. And then you'll run into people who are like you. And then that's how you're going to develop those genuine, authentic friendships with people who are really aligned with you.
Yeah, that's so true. I feel like that is exactly what I went through. You know, I've talked about like having social anxiety and stuff. Like I didn't want to leave the house. It was so hard and I didn't know how to be myself. And through like a lot of introspection and, you know, spending time watching videos of people that inspired me and I wanted to be like, allowed me to kind of come out of my shell, allowed me to break down my walls, and allowed me to be more vulnerable and to run into people, like you said, that are more like me. And once you know who you are and you are comfortable with who you are, it is easier to allow yourself to find those people too.
Yeah.
It's hard to find people that align with you when you don't know who you are.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. I've even found like, you know, being on a Facebook group or posting about my business and stuff has attracted a lot of people who are like me too. And then I've had them be like, with makeup, they'll be like, will you do this photo shoot with us? Will you do this with us? And I've met so many people like through those paths that I attracted them. So it made me a lot more confident to like reach out and like get to know people and be open to that.
Yeah. I feel like for me, community was something that I never had. I felt like that was something that was very lacking. And, you know, I went on this journey of self-discovery and, you know, and now I feel comfortable and safe and couldn't care less by calling myself a witch. Like I am a witch. And, you know, I wanted other people who were into magic and were witchy and spiritual to have a community that they can go to feel safe in that too, and to feel supported in that. And because I think community is so important, and having a safe place for people who are interested in the same things as you, which is how Superior Crystal Coven came to be, which is a community and space that I've created to sell crystals and teach yoga and just have an online presence where you can be around people who are into that. And that was something that I realized I wanted to create for others, because that's something that I wish that I had.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and that's what we're doing here as well, you know. And I think about like the people who we know that listen to this podcast. Like, we love you guys so much. Thank you so much for being here always.
Yes.
We love you so much. I was going to say, when you like yourself genuinely, you don't care if anyone else likes you anymore. And that kind of takes away the fear of, you know, going to meet new people and are they going to like me or not? I like me, so I don't really care, you know? I meet a lot of people who are so worried about what other people are going to think about them. They're scared to meet people. I don't be afraid. If you like yourself, they can't take anything from you.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're not going upstream anymore. You're releasing, you're like letting go of that fear and worry about what other people think of you.
Do I like them?
Exactly. That's the question that you should be asking. It's not about whether they like you. Do you like them? That's so true. I love that. And, you know, on that note, we are growing a community here. And this is a safe space and a place where you can go to expand and grow and learn how to unconditionally love yourself and others, and, be magical and beautiful. Like, feel that, allow yourself to connect with that and feel that, and meet people from, this is just the beginning of something so great. So as you said, we do love you guys so much, and just so happy for anyone that's joining us and a part of this community with us. It's really beautiful.
And please, if you're listening, feel free to add us. We always have all of our social media links posted below, and we are planning on having meetups in the future with lots of really fun, expansive activities and people involved. Magical ones. Ooh, she popped right out. So we always pull a tarot card. What do we have today?
Today we have 7 of Swords, and this is from the Moon Witch Tarot deck.
7 has always been a lucky number for me. So there is a woman who's carrying 5 swords, and then 2 of them are on the ground, and she's kind of walking towards these mountains in the clouds with stars in the background. If you can see the video, it's a really pretty card.
So we like to pull a tarot card at the end of our episodes as an opportunity for reflection for you. And so we invite you to get out your journal or take a moment to reflect after this episode. We'll kind of let the universe weigh in on our conversation. So the 7 of Swords represents deception, uncertainty, strategy, lies, cunning, illusion, and consequences. The 7 of Swords depicts a witch walking away with 7 swords, but dropping 2 of them. This image could mean many different things. Running away, stealth, betrayal, for example. The 2 dropped swords may also symbolize a fear that what was dropped in a rush will eventually catch up and stab you in the back. The image could also represent your desire to quietly walk away or sneak out without anyone noticing, so you would not have to deal with your problems. No matter where you are on your journey, choose an honest and safe plan that will not backfire in the future. Do not run away from your problems. Your heart knows the right thing to do. The reversed meaning of the card signifies that you are terrified of making mistakes, so you do not take any actions at all. You may also experience the opposite, being driven by your impulses, so you take actions that do not have real structure and lack long-term vision. Perhaps the consequences of your actions are finally catching up to you, and you have no choice but to come clean. The 7 of Swords reversed suggests that the tactics you have been using are not working. It is time for a change. Ask yourself if you are being true to yourself and your core values. And that question can also apply to relationships. Are you losing yourself in relationships? Are you being true to your core values by having these people around you? And some other terms that came up were like betrayal, fear that you could be stabbed in the back. And I think that, maybe this is a sign that instead of allowing people that are no longer serving you to leave your life, you are trying to grip onto them and hold onto them for the fear of, maybe upsetting them or for fear of betrayal or something. But I think that, to me, I would just say to trust and surrender to it and not be afraid, of losing relationships or be afraid of someone betraying you, or be afraid that, don't focus on the worst that could happen. Instead, just trust and flow and trust that the best will happen. Whatever's happening is what's meant to be, and to allow that to come to fruition instead of resisting it. Because when you're resisting it, fear and more negative contrast is what's going to arise.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. Just to be your authentic self and live in your truth, I think. And be confident in doing that. We'll see you in the next episode. Again, thank you so much for being here, for listening. If you do have a chance to give us a rating on whatever platform you're listening to, we'd appreciate it so much. And we'll send the love back to you. Thank you so much.